Sechus Kiddushin, Daf Samach Ches. We begin several lines into the Daf. We've been in the middle of a discussion about the source of the halacha that there is no Tfisas Kiddushin and there is mamzeros created by a union of chayve krisus, a situation where kares is caused. The Gemara wants to know, how do you know that Kiddushin is not a typhus in such a marriage, and how do you know that such a union creates mamzerim? So we've already seen one makar, that all the arayas are linked to Achas Ishto. Now the Gemara is going to research another makar. So the Gemara includes Rav Acha bar Yaakov, who says that it's a kavachomer from Yivama L'Shuk. Yivama L'Shuk, if a woman falls to Yibum and instead she goes and she has Bia, or she marries someone else, not her Yivama. So the Torah there reveals that there is no Tfisas Kiddushin. When it says Lo Siya Eshes HaMesa Chutza, that means that there shouldn't be any Havaya, shouldn't be any Sihiyah, and there should be no Kiddushin to anyone else. Now, if it says it specifically, and Yavam L'Shuk is only a lav, Kal V'chomer, a case of Kares, and even a case of Misas Beis Din would certainly create no Tfisas Kiddushin and would create Mamzerim. Those halachas go together always. So says the Gemara, if that's true, that we agree, we understand, we accept this drasha that there's no Tfisas Kiddushin on Yivam L'Shuk, so then we should just learn from Meir Zamametzinu to all other Chayvei Lavin. Why do we only have a Kavachomer to Chayvei Misas Beis and Chayvei Krisus? All Chayvei Lavin should have the same halacha. We should learn from Yivam L'Shuk to other Chayvei Lavin that there is no Tfisas Kiddushin and there is Mamzeros. So the Gemara says no, because we have a counteracting drasha where the Torah says that a Chayvei Lav has Tfisas Kiddushin. Where do you see that? So it's from a drasha that we're going to learn out of the Parsha of Yerusha of the Eshes HaSnua. There it says that if a man marries two wives, a Huva and a Snua, a hated and a loved, he cannot prioritize, he cannot change the rules of inheritance for the children of the loved over the children of the hated. Now what does this mean, a hated wife? How is there a woman who's hated? Why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu consider a woman hated, that he has to give a halacha in the Torah that you would think that the inheritance changed? There is no hated of anybody before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore the halachos could never change just because someone's hated. So what is the Torah referring to when it says the hated woman? So Gemara says hated just means that the marriage is created in a way that is hated for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning that there's an Aveira involved. Now the Gemara says the Aveira therefore is going to be a Chayvei Lav. And we'll question later, maybe it's something else. I don't know it's a Chayvei Lav, but we'll assume at this point the Aveira is a Chayvei Lav, and yet it says Ki Sihieno Ishte Nashim Siyana, meaning that there is Havaya, there is Kiddushin. So you see, even in Chayvei Lav, there is Kiddushin. So we're asked, what is Rabbi Akiva going to do with that? Rabbi Akiva holds there is no Tfisas Kiddushin in the Chayvei Lav. He just gave me a clear drasha that there is Tfisas Kiddushin in the Chayvei Lav. So when it says Rabbi Akiva, we'll learn that that's not talking about your standard Chayvei Lav. It's talking about one specific case. It's talking about an Amana to a Kain Gadol, where Rabbi Simai says in a brisa that there, even Rabbi Akiva agrees that there is Tfisas Kiddushin on that Chayvei Lav. What's the reason? Because the Torah says Lo Yichal Zar B'Amav. This creates Chilulim. It doesn't create Mamzerim. It doesn't create Mamzerim. Then there has to be Tfisas Kiddushin. So Gemara says, okay, that's going to come to Rabbi Simai, but Rav Yeshav disagrees. Rav Yeshav, we had this earlier, said let's go yell at Akiva ben Yosef because he's making mamzerim from every negative interaction in Yisrael. So you see, he's saying that there is mamzeris even in an almana lechayin gadol. Now, there's two ways of learning Rav Yeshav. One is that he's just arguing with Rav Simai. He's responding to what he said, and therefore the only case where he's saying, in addition to Rav Simai, that there is mamzeros is the case of almana lechayin gadol. If that's true, then we could say that this pasuk is not talking about a chayvei lav at all. This pasuk is talking about a chayvei asay. There are situations where the Torah tells us not to do something by saying do something else. It's a commandment, do this asay. So those chayvei asay are lighter than Chayvei Lav, and it could be those are the ones where Rabbi Akiva would agree that there is Tfisas Kiddushin, and that is still called Snua, and that's what the pasuk is referring to when it says that she's a Snua, and there is Havaya. Now, says the Gemara, that's only one pshat of Yeshav. However, the other pshat of Yeshav is that he's not responding to Rabbi Simai, he's talking across the board, and he's saying there is that Rabbi Akiva is creating mamzerim in all negative marriages, which would mean even Chayvei Lav. What then would be a case in which the Torah is referring to when it says the Snua that there is Kiddushin? What is this Snua? What is this Eshes HaSnua that we are referring to? So the Gemara says it's not all Chayvei Lav, but there is one Chayvei Asay, not all Chayvei Asay either. There's one Chiv Asay that is lighter than the other Chiv Asay, and that is Be'ula L'Kayin Gadol. Not an Alman L'Kayin Gadol, but a Be'ula L'Kayin Gadol. And the difference is that almana l'kain gadol is a lav, be'ula l'kain gadol is an asay, and it's lighter than all the other esin because it does not apply to all Yisrael. It only applies to the kain gadol. It's not shava b'kol, and therefore that's a situation in which Rabbi Kiva would agree, even according to Rabbi Yashavav, that there is tfisas kedushin, and that must be what this pasuk of Ahuva and Snua is referring to. So now the Gemara asks, now according to the Rabbanan, let's go back to the Rabbanan where we said we're assuming that this pasuk is referring to Chayvei Lav. I know it's referring to Chayvei Lav. Maybe it's referring to Chayvei Asay, which is lighter. So Chayvei Asay has Tfisas Kedushin, but Chayvei Lavin, we should learn from Yivam L'Shok, does not have Tfisas Kedushin. So the Gemara says, what kind of Chayvei Asay would you like to be referring to? The only Chayvei Asay out there are Be'ul L'Kayin Gadol and a Mitzvah. So let's try Mitzvahs first. If the two wives, the Ahuva and the Snua, are both Mitzriyos, then neither is an Ahuva and a Snua. They're both the same. You can't say one is worse than the other. If one's a Yisraelis and one's a Mitzris, okay, so the Ahuva is a Yisraelis, the Snua is a Mitzris, that is not a logical pshat in the pasuk, because we should be referring to two wives of the same Ummah. Well, this whole discussion is by one Ummah here. And what do you want to say? We're talking about a Be'ula L'kayin Hagadol. That can be because it doesn't say Kisiena L'kayin Shtei Nashim, it says Kisiena L'Ish. And therefore, we're most simply, the most straightforward understanding is that we're not talking about an Isser which applies only to Kahanim. So therefore, we have to say that it's referring to Chayvei Lav. There's no option of Chayvei Asay. What is Rabbi Kiva going to do? He's learning that it is Chayvei Asay. So Gemara says Rabbi Kiva is forced into the position of assuming that it's a Chayvei Asay. He'll learn that it's a Be'ula don't have to accept the Daichik. And the reason that he chooses that is because he prefers that over saying that you don't learn from the Yivam L'Shok. He holds that Yivam L'Shok is a strong source, that there is no Tfisas Kiddushin, and he learns from there. Okay, this completes the sugya of Arayis. Now the Gemara goes on to situations in which there is no Tfisas Kiddushin, not for her, not for anyone, not because of the relationship, but because of who she is. And two examples of that are a Shifcha, Kenanis, and a Nachris. The Gemara is going to want to know what is the source that there's no Tfisas Kiddushin, and what is the source of the other halacha that's linked to that, and that is that the child has the yichus of the mother in that situation. So the Gemara first discusses Shifcha Kenanis. What is the source? So the Gemara says, because it says Shulachem Payim Chamor, it compares the Am of Kenanim to the Chamor, and the two of them are together. Therefore, just like there's no Tfisas Kedushin on a Chamor, a donkey, there's no Tfisas Kedushin on a Shifcha Kenanis. How do you know that the child has a yichus? That's from a different pasuk which says Isha v'yiladeh tila adeneha, the woman, meaning the Shifcha Kenanis that was given to an Emet Ivri, together with her children, both stay with the Adain, and therefore the child stays with the mother and has the yichus of the mother. Now, how do we know about a nachris? So that there is no Tfisas Kedushin is clear. It says leitis chatein vam. It says that straight out. How do you know that the child is miyuchas to the mother? So that's a bit more complex. Because the Torah says the reason you should not marry into the umais is because the kiyasir has been because because your son-in-law will remove your son, meaning your grandson, from my service. He'll take him to be Eved Avodah Zarah. So we're talking about your son-in-law who is an Eved Avodah Zarah, who is a Kenani, or some Shiva Umais, and your son that he's going to take away from you is called your son, is called your grandchild, and he's being taken away. So you see, in a situation where it's your son-in-law who is married to your daughter, the child that's being taken away is yours. And therefore, the child is miyuchas to his mother, who's your daughter, and he's miyuchas to the Israelis, and he is a Jew. However, the Torah does not show any concern where you have a daughter-in-law who's a Kanani, that she will turn your son, meaning your son's son, away from you. Because in that situation, obviously, there is no concern because the child is a Nachri, having been born from a daughter-in-law who is a Nachriya, who is a Nachris, and that clearly shows that the Nachri gene goes to the mother, and that's why there's no concern that she will turn him away from your family because he's hers anyway. He's a nachris. He's a nachri anyway. Now Ravina says a similar thing. As you see from here, that a son born from your daughter is called a Yisrael, even if the father is not a Kechavim. Where it says, does Ravina mean to say that it has a status of a Yisrael and therefore could be a mamzer? If it would be a nachri, so then if he were to convert later, then he would certainly not have any mamzeres because he was a nachri now at this point. But if he's a Yisrael, then he could also be susceptible to the rule of mamzer. So the Gemara says, is Ravina saying it's a mamzer? It's Gemara saying no, he's not a mamzer. We're not going to go that far. He's not a kosher, but he's not a mamzer. He's just a puzzle, and therefore he's not a mamzer, and that is not a concern. Now, the Gemara says these psukim are all talking about the Shiva Amim of Eretz Yisrael. What is the source for other types of umais ha'elam that there is no tefillas kedushin by them, and that the child is following the yichus of the mother there? So the Gemara says, it says by the Eshes Yifas Tayar, after she comes into your house, afterwards you can have tefillas kedushin. After she converts, it can be tefillas kedushin. But showing that beforehand, as long as she's an achros, there's no tefillas kedushin. And how do you know that the child is miyachas after? So that's when it says Kisiyana leish shtein shim, and it says v'yolduloi vanim. So the Kisiyana and the v'yolduloi go together. Only when there is a havaya, only when there's a sienna, is yolduloi, is a child is born to you. However, if there is no sienna, if there's no tefillas kedushin, then there is no yolduloi, because it's yoldulah. It's her child, not yours, as far as yichus is concerned. So once that's true, that's a general term that applies to all situations where there's no tefillas kedushin. So then even on a shifcha, you should also include that, and there should be no. You should not need the pasuk of Isha v'yiladeh tiyaladeh. So the Gemara says you're right. So what is that a pasuk for? For something else, as we learn in a brisa, somebody who says to his shifcha who's pregnant, "I'm setting you free, but your child, your unborn child, is going to stay in eved." Does that work, or does the child born freed like his mother who's free at the time? So Rav Yosi says no, the child goes free. His source is Isha v'yiladeh tiyaladeh. Only when the Isha is ladeneha is the child ladeneha. Otherwise, the child is free, just like the mother is free. Chachamim disagree and say no, it is possible to have such a circumstance, and his words are true, and they'll be fulfilled. The mother is free, and the child remains in Eved. Now, the Gemara brings the source after the opinion of the Chachamim, and Rav explains it was really referring to Rabbi Yosi Haglili.